Hi, my name is Joff Whitten. I'm the CEO of the Children's Centre. There are an awful lot of incredible charities on the island, and they do amazing work with all sorts of different target groups and specific issues. The Children's Centre specifically, we work with vulnerable children who are unfortunately missing out on services from the main government providers. So it's kind of in between healthcare, it's in between education, and it's in between social work. It's that sort of, for want of a better word, missing middle. We don't receive any contracted government funding to do this work, and the organisation costs around about £950,000 operationally per year. So each year we need to raise that money to do the work that we do. And of course, we want it to be free at the point of delivery for the children or the young people or the families that we work with. So we put on fundraising events, and so many other organisations do, and they're brilliant and they're wonderful ways of getting involved in community activity and being excited about the island. And I think I'm amazed at how popular the fundraising events are on Ireland. I come from the UK, and when I first moved here, I was just astounded at how giving people are. It's something that I think people should be really, really proud of. And unfortunately, we're moving into a time where income is becoming tighter for everybody. Statistically, like most charities are noticing a 30% drop in public giving. Funders like the Manx Lottery Trust are becoming more and more oversubscribed because there's less money around. And so we're all doing our very best to raise the necessary income to run our services properly. And we do one event specifically about an event called Race the Sun, where we ask for groups of 10 people to run around the island between dawn and dusk to beat the sunset and complete the Radna Follen. And it's just a brilliant day. It's a lovely event, and so many people take part in it. And it's always one of my favourite kind of points within the calendar, because you get so many groups of people being enthusiastic, and you get some silly groups and you get some competitive groups. We've noticed in the past few years that people are kind of becoming more careful about raising money for something like Race the Sun. So this year we've tried to remind people that it is a fundraising event. The only reason we as a children's charity put on our fundraising events is to raise funds for the services that we deliver. And launching it this week has met with some commentary around that. So I just thought it's an interesting debate, this. What is the purpose of a fundraising event? Is it public engagement, or is it actually raising money for a charity? So we are trying to be a little bit clearer about those asks to the people. There's the registration fee, which is about covering the operational cost of the event. And then there's this kind of target of this is the purpose we're doing this, is to make some money for service delivery. And
so what you're saying is that for this year, that each of the 10 teams competing, you're asking them to raise a minimum of £650.
Yes.
So that would be, so if for a team of 10, we're talking about £65 per person.
Yes.
And what has been the feedback from that then?
I would say currently we've had some interesting kind of responses to it. What's brilliant is so many people are saying how fabulous the event is, and actually also saying how fabulous the Children's Centre is, which I'm really pleased about, because that's the point of it, that's the point of the charity. But I think it's this idea of we've raised the cost of it. We haven't raised the cost of it. We're just trying to remind people that the event is about raising funds for charitable services. So the target of £650, we're going to be talking over the next 10 weeks of kind of good ways of trying to get little groups to do some fundraising, perhaps in work or, perhaps outside of work. There's some lovely little ideas of just generating a little bit of sponsorship towards an event. And, to use the analogy, it's like those who take part in the London Marathon or one of the other marathon events. There's always a fundraising target against those sorts of events. So we really want to help. We want to help teams make sure they get the best out of their group and have a really joyous day as being part of it, but also kind of feeling a bit sort of, use the word pride, pride in terms of raising money for a children's charity. I just think I think it can be a great way of bringing people together as well.
You mentioned as well the fact that donations to charity as a whole are down sort of 30% at the moment. And given some of the reasons that you've mentioned, things like we are in the midst of a cost of living crisis. Absolutely. I know that there are lots of people who have their concerns about the Isle of Man budget, which we've spoken about extensively on Manx Radio. Mm-hmm. And it makes people feel insular and not necessarily wanting to think about the world outside them and how that's being impacted. And can you understand from that perspective then why people might suddenly think, oh gosh, you're putting this target on me, that's a lot of pressure?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And this is it. Money is tight for everybody. The kind of ironic circumstances of that is that often in times of budget crisis or financial crisis, charitable services are needed more and more and more because life is hard for people. So, families are pushed and pushed and pushed, and children can get marginalised within that. So the irony of a situation where there isn't as much money around is that services like the Children's Centre provider, one of the other wonderful charities on Ireland, they become more and more needed or more and more necessary. So we absolutely understand why people feel a little bit, I haven't got any cash myself. But I think the important kind of message there is we're not asking for individuals to pay £65. We're asking them to try their hardest to raise that money from a bit of sponsorship, a bit of any kind of, little ideas about how they can gather a few pounds from their friends or family or whatever. Another way of looking at it is that the Raise the Sun specifically is kind of a metaphor for our services. So we work with vulnerable kids who get locked into themselves and find it really hard to break out of their complex circumstances. And we put activities or experiences in front of them that give them a challenge and a way of really recontextualizing or reframing their life. So those people that take part of Raise the Sun, you've got the competitive ones, which is just admirable, but you've also got the people who've never done a running event before, and that's a really amazing and brave thing to do. So we really want to celebrate that and find a way of it being the most incredible community event, but also generating some very needed funding for a children's charity.
And from the Children's Centre's perspective, how much have you been impacted over the global issues over the past few years as a charity and your fundraising work?
Well, I mean, that's exactly the nail on the head with the issues, is that pandemic is still resonating across things like education and across things like health. Developmental milestones weren't hit by children, moving between schools or moving up points in their education. And it's going to have impact, and it's going to be felt for another 10 years. And then on top of that, we've had cost of living. So people have less money to do things, and actually kind of, food poverty becomes a real genuine issue. Heating poverty is becoming a genuine issue as well. So it's huge. We've had about a 45% increase in referrals to our services. We're seeing a rise in all sorts of things around ADHD diagnosis and anxiety diagnosis and behavioural challenges within school and family complications, family separation, and to some really serious stuff like domestic abuse and domestic violence. The statistical increase on Ireland is really worrying. So it's around everywhere. And unfortunately, there is less money about. All of the funders are being oversubscribed. Donations are down. Government, I know, do pay for some services with other organisations, but currently the Children's Centre, we get no contracted funding, and it is tight. It is really tight. So it's worrying times for all of us, really. So we're trying to spin this into a positive, which I guess I've just come out with some really gloomy stuff. But when you do have the resources to deliver really meaningful impact as an early intervention, you can make a massive difference to children. And data-wise, there's loads of data about early intervention actually saving money for the future. If you sort out a problem now, you're not looking at repeated challenges across teenage years or into early adulthood. And there are metrics against it, and £1 invested now can save £15 in services in the future. There's loads of ways of thinking about it. So, for us, what we're doing is we want to make our public events like Raise the Sun, or, one of the other charities, really brilliant kind of income generating events, just be part of it and celebrate it and celebrate your contribution to it, and that the contribution is being a participant, but also raising some money, some much needed funding for charitable work.
How were you able to actually put on the event this year with all of these financial challenges?
We obviously have to work out what the operational cost of an event is, because, as a professional organisation, we have to deliver events safely and correctly. So we always try and align ourselves with a corporate sponsor who gives us a donation towards some of the operational costs of an event. But something like Raise the Sun, it's a really big, undertaking, and it takes quite a lot of planning to kind of make it work. And this year we're partnering with Atla, who've been incredibly generous, and they've given us a good donation towards it. But it doesn't cover the full cost of putting the event on. It covers things like the sponsorship elements. So we're really incredibly grateful to Atla. That's brilliant they're part of it, and they're with us on this journey in terms of making sure that something like Raise the Sun cracks a really good target, gets upwards of £20,000 worth of cash reserves towards the Children's Centre's running costs.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.